Nobody thinks they're the villain. That's the thing about narcissism that most people get completely wrong. When you say the word narcissist, people picture someone loud, arrogant, the guy who walks into a room and immediately starts talking about himself, the boss who takes credit for everything, the ex who made every single argument about their own feelings. That's the one everyone recognizes. But that's not the one we're talking about today. There's another kind, quieter, more careful, harder to spot, harder to call out, and in many ways, far more damaging. The covert narcissist doesn't demand attention. They engineer it. They don't brag openly. They position themselves so you end up doing it for them. They don't explode with rage. They go silent, withdraw, and make you feel guilty for things you can't even name. A lot of people who have one in their life never recognize them. And some people who are one never recognize themselves. So that's exactly what this is about. 5 behaviors. Specific, recognizable, real. Whether you're trying to understand someone in your life, or a quiet voice is asking if that person might be you, either way, stay. Pay attention. Because this matters more than you think. Before the 5 things, you need to understand what makes covert narcissism different, because most people have it wrong. Both overt and covert narcissists share the same core: an inflated sense of self-importance, a deep need for admiration, and a fundamental lack of empathy. That part is identical. The difference, the only real difference, is the strategy they use to get what they need. The overt narcissist is obvious. They need you to know they're exceptional. They'll tell you directly, loudly, repeatedly. The covert narcissist needs the same thing, but they've learned that being obvious doesn't work for them, so they go underneath. They present as humble, sensitive, even self-deprecating. They're the ones who seem like they need protecting, the ones who look like the victim in almost every story they tell. But underneath that presentation, the same hunger, the same desperate need for control, the same inability to truly see other people as anything more than mirrors or obstacles. Psychologists call this the vulnerable or fragile subtype, because the covert narcissist's entire internal architecture is built around protecting a self-image that cannot tolerate being questioned, challenged, or honestly examined by anyone. That fragility is the whole trap. Number 1. They play the victim, constantly and without exception. Every single story they tell ends the same way. They were wronged, overlooked, unappreciated, treated unfairly by someone who just didn't understand them. Their boss is incompetent and personally threatened. Their family never valued them. Their ex was cruel. Their friends don't make enough effort. The world has simply not given them what they deserve, and they believe every word of it. And here's what makes it so hard to see clearly. Some of those things might even be true. Life is unfair. People really do get overlooked. Pain is real and valid. But the covert narcissist doesn't just experience victimhood. They live permanently inside it and refuse to leave. It becomes their identity, their currency, and their most reliable method for maintaining control over every single person in their life. That is how the trap is designed. Because as long as they're the victim, they're never responsible. Every failure has an external cause. Every relationship problem is the other person's fault. Every criticism aimed at them gets flipped. Suddenly, the person who raised the issue is the one who caused harm. If you're in a relationship with one, you know this dynamic. You've had arguments where you raised something real, and by the end, you were the one apologizing. That's not an accident. That's the architecture. Number 2, they use guilt as a weapon, and they are extraordinarily precise about it. Covert narcissists don't threaten. They don't need to. They sigh. They go quiet. They say no, it's fine in a tone that makes absolutely clear it is not fine. They bring up something you did 3 years ago at the exact moment you try to set a boundary. They get visibly wounded whenever you dare to prioritize yourself over their needs. That is not emotion. That is strategy. The goal is always the same: to make your needs feel like an inconvenience, a betrayal, or a direct personal attack. To make you so aware of their pain, real or performed, that you abandon what you were fighting for and focus entirely on managing their emotions instead. Over time, the people around a covert narcissist develop one very specific habit. They stop bringing things up. Not because things are fine, because it costs too much. So the silence grows. That's exactly the outcome the covert narcissist needs. A world where no one challenges them, because everyone around them has been quietly and carefully trained not to, and they never once had to raise their voice to build it. Number 3. They need admiration, but they disguise exactly how they get it. They never say, "Look how great I am." Instead, they engineer subtle, elaborate pathways designed to make you say it for them, without ever being confronted directly. They tell you how hard they work while everyone else coasts. They describe their struggles in ways that are really just invitations to be told how strong and resilient they are. They downplay their accomplishments in a tone designed to make you push back and correct them. "Oh, it's nothing really." Translation: "Please tell me it's something. I don't know how I keep going sometimes." Translation: "Tell me how remarkable I am." The praise is the whole point of the performance. They also use triangulation, deliberately pulling third parties into conversations to generate the admiration they need. Casually dropping that someone else praised them, mentioning that people depend entirely on them. And when the admiration doesn't come, when you fail to notice, fail to praise, fail to respond the way they need, there are always quiet consequences. The withdrawal, the coldness, that shift in the atmosphere that you feel but simply cannot name. You learn, over time, to give them what they need, not because you want to, because the alternative is so much worse. Number 4. They have zero tolerance for criticism. Try giving a covert narcissist honest feedback sometime. Not cruelty, not an attack. Just honest, fair, reasonable feedback about something they did. Watch what happens next. They don't argue back usually. That would be too obvious. Instead, they crumble completely under the weight of what you said. They get quiet and wounded. They interpret the feedback not as information, but as evidence that you don't value them, don't support them, maybe even that you're working against them entirely. Psychologists call this narcissistic injury, the intense, disproportionate response to anything that threatens the self-image. For the overt narcissist, injury looks like rage. For the covert narcissist, it looks like total devastation. And now you're the one managing the aftermath. And devastation is so much harder to navigate than rage. Because now you're not just defending your point. You're managing a person who looks genuinely broken by what you said. So you walk it back. You soften it. You spend 20 minutes reassuring them when you were the one who had the original concern. Over time, the people closest to a covert narcissist stop offering honest feedback entirely. They self-censor. They edit themselves, until silence is the only safe option. And the covert narcissist moves through life in a carefully managed bubble, never truly forced to reckon with how their behavior actually affects the people around them, which is precisely what they need, because genuine self-reflection would require confronting something they have spent their entire life running from. Number 5. They lack empathy, but they are remarkably skilled at faking it. And this is the one that confuses people the most. Because covert narcissists can genuinely seem deeply empathetic, they listen, they ask the right questions, they say exactly the right things at exactly the right moments. They appear warm, caring, and perceptive, especially early in a relationship during what's called the idealization phase. When they need you, they reflect you back with remarkable accuracy. You feel completely and fully seen by them. That's when your needs begin to conflict with theirs. Suddenly, the empathy disappears entirely. Your pain becomes an inconvenience. Your struggle becomes a segue back into their own. Your crisis somehow ends with them being the one who needs support. You've tried to talk about something real and walked away feeling like you were never truly heard, like the conversation was quietly redirected, like somehow, without quite understanding how, you ended up taking care of them instead, every single time, without exception. That's because what looked like empathy wasn't. It was mirroring, a performance of connection designed to build attachment and loyalty. Real empathy requires seeing another person as fully real, with needs just as valid as your own. A covert narcissist cannot do that, not consistently, not when it costs them anything. And the cruelest part? They often genuinely believe they're empathetic. They just can't see the gap between who they think they are and who they actually are. If you've been watching this and recognizing someone, a parent, a partner, a friend, a colleague, this is what you need to hear. You are not imagining it. The confusion, the way your needs keep shrinking while theirs stay the same, that's not you being too sensitive. That's a dynamic that was deliberately built, and you've been living inside it. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to stop making yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. If you've been watching this and seeing yourself in these patterns instead, that takes real courage to sit with. Recognizing it is deeply uncomfortable. But the fact that you're looking at it honestly is the beginning of something genuinely different. Covert narcissism isn't a life sentence, but it requires more than recognition. It requires the willingness to sit with the discomfort of being wrong, of having caused harm, without making that discomfort someone else's responsibility. Here's the truth underneath all 5 of these behaviors. Covert narcissism is, at its core, a defense, a fortress built by someone who decided early in life that being truly seen was too dangerous, that needing things openly was weakness, that the only safe way to exist was to control how others perceived them, keeping everyone close enough to be useful and far enough away to never really know them. That doesn't make it acceptable. It doesn't erase the damage done. But it does mean there's a human being underneath it. Frightened, defended, and completely convinced that the way they move through the world is the only way they know how to survive. The people who actually change are the ones who find the courage to stop surviving and start being honest about what they've done, about what they need, about who they really are when no one is managing the image. That kind of honesty is the only thing that actually works.